I'm quite nervous about this microphone now. I hope it behaves better than grade 11 this week. So IB is about experiential education. In many other schools, when it comes to the EE, the children have to endure lectures for hours upon hours about how to do research. We're a little bit different here. And we teach by doing. So we give them opportunities to try, much as they're appreciated, I'm sure. So the students choose the topic. Mr. Alexander then carefully chooses the question. Then I make them do it. So it has been a week of blood, sweat and tears. That's just me. And I think these guys have also put in an awful amount of work. It's been a real pleasure to see them work this hard, and I'm very much looking forward to see them speak. This is where it goes wrong. So I'd like to introduce the students onto stage. I'd like to introduce Rashna, Amma, Chiara, and Gatka. And I'm going to go really mad because I'm having a moment where I've not quite forgotten what I'm pretending I have. No, thank you. Okay, please come on to the stage. Okay, and first up is Lewis.
Hello everyone, I'm Luis, and as you can see already next to me, I'm talking about football. But I asked myself, what factors contribute to the underperformance of the FIFA World Cup by African teams? And even with African teams having a history, a lot of interesting players like Eto'o, Drogba, they never managed to come further than the quarterfinals in the FIFA World Cup. Some reasons for that is the political problems in Africa. A lot of countries have political problems like corruption or war. The war causes bad infrastructure in a few countries, and as well economically problems. A lot of countries have economic problems and don't have much money to pay or invest into football, and that are all reasons why African countries underperform in the FIFA World Cup. Another huge aspect is the rule made by FIFA, the organizer of the World Cup, and the rule says that from each continent a certain amount of teams can qualify for the World Cup. For example, Europe has 13 slots, Africa has 5, and Asia has 4, and so on, as you can see over there. Then even Africa is the second highest continent by percent rate. It's not quite fair because Europe with 48 countries has 13 slots and Africa with 54 countries has only 5 slots. So the rule is not equal and fair. And if we travel back to the time, we come to the colonial time, where a lot of European countries colonial the African continent, and a lot of African countries were under control by European countries. And then back in the time, a lot of citizens from Africa came to Europe for work and a better life or health quality. A lot of people came to Europe to have more, food or something, and even nowadays in a lot of African countries, there is still poorness, like that many people are famine, and so on is a huge problem that many people come to Europe just for better health or life quality. And most of them come already in a young age to Europe, and as you can see there, the national team plays in every country I mentioned more than 50% of immigrants from Africa. But why do people actually want to play for a European national team instead of their home country in Africa? The reason for that is that you earn Europe way more money than in Africa and have the option to have better chances on a trophy that you can earn on the FIFA World Cup. Then, as well, as I mentioned already, you have better life and health quality that you don't live in corners. Also, if we talked about the money, I'm coming to an important aspect, the investment by countries. I mentioned the top 3 countries by investment in Africa and the top 3 countries in Europe. And you can see already a big difference between the countries. The top country in Africa is Egypt with an investment of 127 billion per year. That sounds quite a lot, but compared to Europe it's nothing, because England is the highest country in Europe to invest into football with almost $3 billion per year. And what does that cause? It causes that many countries in Europe have better young development for players, and for example, youth academies, football academies, and train and kind of good training area, football pitches, and so on. As well, they have more money for hiring coaches to find young stars, and Africa doesn't have the financial resources to pay for that all. As well, it's a quite important aspect, because even that a lot of players from Africa don't get as much support from the government, from the football academies and so on. People don't even get the chance in Africa to get a star like as people in Europe does, or in Asia does, or in America does. So even Africa doesn't have the option to create young stars as Europe does. And so we come to the conclusion why African countries actually underperform in the FIFA World Cup. As I said, political problems is a huge aspect that in a few countries still exists war in Africa, and that causes bad infrastructure in a few countries, or economically problems, that countries doesn't have the option or the financial resources to build training areas, pitches, and so on for youngsters. As well, a huge problem is that many countries doesn't have lose their citizens because of immigration in Europe. Many people want to live in Europe for a better lifestyle and health quality, and that all are reasons why African teams underperform in the FIFA World Cup. Thank you.
I'm especially proud of Lewis because until this year, until August, he was in German school and has never been taught in English before. And he was first up, best dressed, and best prepared. Now I'd like to introduce Remarkably.
Hello, my name is Analytical, and today I'm going to give a presentation on wildlife conservation and how it is affected by hunting. Did you know that humans have wiped out more than 60% of species since 1970? Due to this and a range of other factors, many people have expressed concern over wildlife conservation, in particular, how hunting affects it. There's been an ongoing argument about hunting for sport and recreation, and whether it should be allowed when considering the animal populations. One side of the argument is that hunting should be allowed and actually benefits wildlife conservation. In the USA, hunters have been contributing to wildlife conservation since the 19th century. They've lobbied for stricter regulations on hunting, such as the Duck Stamp Act, which requires every hunter of ducks and other animals and other birds to purchase a stamp. And the revenue from these stamps has generated over $1 billion to help with conserving environments. Hunters also help to curb overpopulation of certain animals like elk and deer when they are overproducing. This type of hunting is called regulational hunting and is an effective tool for addressing overpopulation issues. However, hunting still has negative effects on wildlife conservation, and many people believe it should be banned entirely for this. Many hunters will target rarer and more endangered species because it gives them more pride to hold up on the wall. There's also the question of illegal hunting, like poaching, where people will, for example, target elephants, take their husks, and then leave the rest of the corpse on the ground. This has led to severe declines in especially endangered animals, which has negatively affected wildlife conservation. Due to corruption in government and the lack of regulations, especially in third world countries in Africa and Asia, these poachers have been able to reduce these populations without any consequences. However, banning hunting entirely would be detrimental for indigenous tribes and groups of people who engage in hunting rituals and need to hunt to survive. These tribes have been hunting in specific ways for centuries before colonization, but newer hunting regulations have limited their rituals. Despite this, more actions are being taken to help indigenous cultures hunt while still allowing for wildlife conservation. For example, in the USA, the United States v. Williams has helped contribute to hunting rights for indigenous cultures, allowing them to hunt specific species of animals. In India, certain tribes have given up hunting rights to support wildlife conservation, such as the Angani tribe in Nagaland. To further understand the public's opinions on hunting and wildlife conservation, I held a survey. Most of the surveyors were against hunting for sport. Although about a third of the contestants' surveillance pointed out that hunting could be used for recreational hunting, as I mentioned earlier. A majority of the surveillance pointed out that hunting could lead to a decline in wildlife population, which is the popular belief. However, research has challenged this idea. Many studies have found that hunting either has no effect on wildlife population or has inconclusive results. It seems to affect the wildlife population more in the USA and Europe rather than countries like Africa and Asia. However, it should be noted that most of the wildlife species that were not affected were considered of least concern in terms of endangerment, whereas the species that were more hunted were endangered species. In conclusion, research on this topic seems to point to various different conclusions. In my opinion, I believe that hunting can be used to benefit wildlife conservation, but there are other methods that we can look to improve instead, which are more beneficial. The question is, which methods are more useful? Thank you.
Thank you, Avantika. I know that hunting is certainly a very emotive topic wherever you, whichever country you are looking at. So, for our next student, whichever, we've got Rajveer.
So my research topic was on how the development of human rights in developing countries can influence their economic progress. You know what? Developing countries don't deserve human rights. After all, what have they ever done to earn them? But hang on, aren't human rights an inalienable thing? Aren't all human beings entitled to them the second that they're born? Well, in this project, I delved into the multifaceted world of economics, aiming to unravel its complexities and share insights that extend beyond the conventional boundaries of learning. Embarking on this project has been a journey of discovery, curiosity, and intellectual growth. Through extensive research, thoughtful analysis, and creative exploration, I have endeavored to create a comprehensive and engaging study that creates a deeper understanding of economics. In this project, I attempted to find ways in which the development of human rights in developing countries can cause economic progress in that country. In order to find evidence to answer this question, I used quantitative research and analysis, which included collecting raw data from secondary sources of information and correlating this data with the research topic. After collecting this raw data, I began to research ways in how this data could connect to the research topic and how this data could be used to prove my hypothesis. While researching on this topic, I discovered that there are many different ways in which the development of human rights in developing countries can influence their economic progress, some of which include the fact that most foreign institutional investors consider the human rights levels of a particular country before making an investment into them. An example is of how Qatar is said to not pay any importance to human rights, but at the same time, they struggle to attain international recognition as a first world country, despite having a very high GDP per capita. Many people and institutions believe that as a country begins to pay more importance to human rights, they also attain more respect at the international stage. This can influence the investment opportunities available for foreign investors in these countries. An example of human rights influencing economic progress is when a country ensures equal access to education and healthcare to its entire population. This will improve the overall health and education levels of all its citizens and ultimately lead to a more productive workforce, which will contribute to economic growth. Upholding human rights principles can lead to a more transparent and accountable form of governance and reduce corruption, which improves the business environment, encouraging investments and ensuring that resources are allocated efficiently, which will contribute to economic growth. Additionally, heightened levels of human rights can serve as a catalyst for entrepreneurial endeavors among citizens. When individuals are assured of their rights and freedoms, they are more motivated to initiate their own small businesses, and these ventures in turn have the potential to become a cornerstone of the country's economy and create a ripple effect by offering employment to considerable amount of people across the country and contribute substantially to the economic landscape of the country in the long term. The empowerment of individuals through enhanced human rights acts as a driving force behind these positive economic developments. In conclusion, this essay highlights the pivotal role of human rights in shaping the economic trajectory of a developing country. Through careful analysis and quantitative evidence, it becomes evident that countries emphasizing on human rights experience superior economic progress. This progress is not merely a result of policy, it's a consequence of empowered citizens, increased foreign investment, and the creation of a conducive environment for economic activity. Therefore, fostering human rights is not just a moral imperative, but also an economic necessity for nations aspiring to achieve sustained growth and prosperity. The findings from my research underscore the significance of human rights in driving positive economic outcomes and emphasize the need for global efforts in promoting and protecting these fundamental rights for all citizens. Here are some questions related to this topic that I was intrigued by, but I didn't have the chance to research on. How can a developing country like India increase the rate of its economic progress by giving more importance to human rights? Is it possible for a country which gives a lot of importance to human rights to not be able to economically progress? And what are the other factors influencing economic progress in developing countries? Thank you.
Thank you, Rashmir. I think we can all see where his future lies. But I think Davos, that's where I see it. So, for our next student, it's Anna.
So
my topic is how is the concept of nuclear family evolved in India? Traditionally, Indian society was characterized by the prevalence of extended families, where multiple generations lived under one roof. But today I'm here to discuss the fascinating evolution of the concept of nuclear families in India. So in the past, Indian families were primarily joint families, comprising grandparents, parents, and children living together. However, today we see a shift towards nuclear families consisting of parents and their unmarried children. This transition has been influenced by factors such as urbanization, industrialization, changing social norms, economic independence, and individualism. Still, it's essential to remember that India remains diverse, with both nuclear and extended families coexisting in various regions. In the context of Indian households, a nuclear family consists of two generations living together, typically parents and their unmarried children. The transition from extended families to nuclear families has been driven by several factors. Urbanization has forced smaller family units due to space constraints and modern lifestyles. The growing Indian economy and diversified job opportunities have led to individuals pursuing careers independently, further promoting nuclear families. Changing social norms, including greater acceptance of love marriages and individual choice, have shifted the ideal family structure. Privacy and evolving social preferences also favor nuclear families. However, this transition is not without challenges such as elderly care and support. So I conducted a survey where I sent the survey to different people from diverse backgrounds, ages, and socioeconomic statuses. Surveys and questionnaires are an efficient way to collect a substantial amount of quantitative data quickly, and anonymity encourages honest responses. The results indicate a significant shift from traditional joint families to nuclear families in India. While many have embraced this change, some still hold on to traditional values and continue to live in joint families. So, in conclusion, the concept of nuclear families in India has evolved dramatically over years. Traditional extended families have given way to nuclear families due to socio-economic factors, changing social norms, and evolving career opportunities. These shifts indicate the changing social and economic landscape of India. This evolution is a testament to the adaptability of Indian society, reflecting the complex interplay of tradition and modernity. It's important to recognize that while nuclear families are on the rise, India still remains a diverse and multifaceted nation where various family structures coexist. As we move forward, it's crucial to continue examining these changes in social norms and family structures to better understand how Indian society continues to evolve. The transition to nuclear families is a reflection of India's progress and transformation, both socially and economically. So these are the questions I didn't research on and wish to have. Where do we think families are going to evolve to? As more women go into the workplace, how is that going to affect the roles in the family? And do different cultures have different family structures? Thank you.
Well done, Arman. Arman's been away all week playing golf. So he walked back into a quite a pressured situation this morning where he basically had to turn his slides around and get it all very sorted very quickly, so extremely well done. Okay. And last but very definitely not least, Chiara.
Our world is changing. Animals are dying. Plants are dying. The world is burning. By the time I finish my speech, 4 unique species of animals, plants, or anything might go extinct entirely forever. Is that really the world you want your children to have and grow up in? There's a problem and it needs to be dealt with. In Rebecca Lindsay's 2023 article, she talks about how climate change jeopardizes the ecosystems for plants and animals, completely displacing them, leaving them with absolutely no homes. This leads to their extinction, sadly. This goes hand in hand with Stephen E. Williams' article, where he talks about rising temperatures, creating biodiversity to completely be lost, and habitat fragmentation. A way we can solve a lot of these problems is by having restricted areas completely untouched by mankind, like the Australian wet tropics bioregion. Mansoor Sheikh's 2021 article talks about the increase of temperature causing incredible wildfires, again destroying the biodiversity entirely. These rising temperatures and rising precipitation levels destroys the balance, the precious balance we have, again causing extinction. Drought stresses cause diseases and pests as soil and everything loses all its nutrition. Forest fires, because of the rising temperatures, completely makes the animals, birds, everything lose their homes. Could you imagine that? There's a silver lining to this though, as we can discover new species. There's a thing called survival of the fittest, where in this we can see which animals, which species and plants can actually survive these harsh conditions. Innovations and sustainable practices might actually help reduce these effects. The method I used, I had chosen between two methods, the longitudinal study and Google Forms, which I chose Google Forms as it was much simpler and I could collect my responses much faster. I sent it out to all my fellow peers and teachers and students and staff, of course. And I tried to send it out onto my Instagram story as well so I could get more responses. So these are the two graphs that I have chosen to use. The first one, it shows changes in annual rainfall patterns over the past 5 years. 19 out of 27 people experienced change, either completely non-consistent. Either it rained more, or it rained much, much less, or it rained so much that we had flooding. The second one, which I had put out, is changes in weather and season. Most people actually experience either hotter, longer summers, like the UK, or longer, wetter rains. To conclude, I would like to say that climate change is definitely a significant factor affecting us. Humans' wrongdoing are the main cause. In my survey, a lot of the responses I got were deforestation and globalization being the main problems. And because of these two issues, there's an immense reduction of core species. It is our duty to protect these species, and action must be taken to help this beautiful symphony of wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you, Chiara. That was fabulous, and I think she might give Rashford to run for his money. Okay, so I know that the students have all been very nervous. They've been practicing very hard coming in after school. I just think it'd be lovely if we could just give them another quick round of applause. I'll start with you. Now this bit is where I get my revenge.
Difficult questions. So I'd like to start and ask us all a few questions. Split it up. So I'll start with Rajni. What has been the most difficult part of this process in the foundation project?
I think choosing which raw data to collect and which was relevant to the topic was the hardest part of this foundation project.
Fantastic. If you pass the mic to Arman, would you like to answer the same question?
Meeting the deadline.
Oh yes, that was hard. Same question to you, Kiara.
For me, it was probably balancing everything, balancing my sport, balancing my studies, just managing to get everything done, as well as competing and practicing for my national competition.
Same question, Avantika.
For me, I believe it was remaining unbiased in my research and ensuring that I got objective data from all sides of the argument.
It is very difficult. Lewis?
I think for me the hardest thing was to choose the right topic, what you're going to talk about.
Fantastic. And then I'm going to shoot it back down that way. So, what was the best thing about the project?
That you could take any resources, any sources, and create your own talk about it.
I think I liked all the new information I learned. The things I thought were surface level were actually much deeper and were much more important to my topic than I thought.
For me, I think it was just listening to my friends and hearing the inputs they had on this topic, whether they actually even understood about it or not, and what they had to say about it.
For me, it was like choosing any kind of topic. Like you don't have to be fixed on one certain topic.
I think for me it was I already had a basic idea of my topic before I started to research, but through my research I got a much deeper understanding of the topic. I think that was the best part.
I think we all found, most of you did surveys, yeah? So the surveys are more difficult than first imagined because you think Google Forms, it's very easy. So what is the thing that you have learnt about surveys for next time when you do your EE? Arman, what did you learn about surveys and setting the questions? Did you use all the data that you got in your final presentation?
No.
So why not?
Because it doesn't prove my point.
Thank you. Kiara?
For me, it was probably being more diverse in the questions, as I had spoken to a few people who in other countries didn't experience any of the options I had chosen. So maybe making it more open to different countries and regions.
For me, I think it was getting a diverse array of surveillance. I found that a lot of the people who filled out the survey were either in my age range of teenagers or around my parents' age due to me sending it to my family and their colleagues. So I struggled a bit with getting more than that.
I didn't choose all the research I found because some of them wasn't that relevant as that I mentioned.
Okay, and that's a really big skill. It's not just putting everything down on the page that you find. So, final question. Of all the things, so when you're looking back and you're going to do the EE next year sometime, or end of this year, what are you going to tell yourself? What key points are you going to tell yourself, particularly about timekeeping and deadlines? No hints, Arman. But what are you going to tell yourself next year to keep yourself going through the EE? What's the big learning point?
To keep motivated.
Make sure to pace myself, don't do everything all at once, and don't leave it until the last minute.
Do not psych myself entirely and just get completely scared by having to do intense amounts of work.
Choose a topic you like.
To conduct more thorough research, maybe.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, I've had my revenge. It's your turn now. Would anybody from the audience like to ask these wonderful, wonderful students any questions about their research? Oh.
Hi. So my question is to Aman. So my question to you is, you mentioned it was difficult for you to choose a particular topic. So any reason why you chose about nuclear families?
He's not thinking of going out soon.
So the reason I asked you, it's a very unique topic and it's very topical in the country that we live in. I also used to think like you, and then COVID happened. And I realized that even though most of us think we live in nuclear families, we actually live in extended families. Because either the son lives very close to the father or the daughter lives very close to the siblings. So even though we all have nuclear setups, but we are actually very intermingled with the immediate family. So it's a different concept, the way it functions here. So that's why I'm very intrigued by your topic and asked you that question. So anything else, like apart from, it was easy for you to pick up the topic?
On the spot now.
That's fine. You can stay at home for as long as you want.
Avantika, you were talking about animals and hunting, and I was wondering if you thought there was a hierarchy of animals. I wonder whether you thought all animals were made equally. 4 legs good, 3 legs bad, that kind of approach.
Well, there's definitely a hierarchy of animals, but on a social way, like certain human societies seem to have more on just, I think many of us have learned there's producers, as primary consumers and secondary consumers, and predators, for example. Humans would be considered predators if you're wondering about that. But despite that, we don't really need to hunt as much as the average predator would because we're omnivores. And we have other sources of food.
It's amazing, right?
Avantika. Sorry. You just said that humans are not predators because we don't need to hunt, but we do eat meat.
We are predators, and we do eat meat. But the thing is that unlike many other predators, we are omnivores. And since we have different ways of, you could say that, for example, farming is considered hunting in a way because we are killing prey when we farm animals like sheep and cows.
So if your recommendation is to ban wildlife hunting because it could reduce, it could impact species, do you think we should all go vegetarian for the same reasons?
No, I don't think we should ban hunting. I think it can definitely be used, even if it's just for sport. But I feel like we should have stricter regulations on it, especially in terms of poaching.
Of course, this goes to Louise because your topic is very close to my heart. I agree entirely with your presentation and your findings. My question to you would be, what's the future of African football, or does it have a future from your perspective, for your findings?
I think so, yes, because many European organizations invest into African football. So I think in the future, African is going to be relevant in the football aspect.
Thank you.
I had a question for Kiara. Hi. So you spoke about climate change. Do you think we could do something in the school to support the cause, like anything that the school students, teachers, and the parent body could contribute to the cause that you spoke about?
I think our school already does a really great, it's very good at spreading awareness, as especially in our bio lessons, we talk about it very openly, and in our school specifically, compared to a lot of other schools, it is a very open topic that almost everyone just kind of knows. It's not like something you need to learn, whereas it's something which is almost second nature to us, because we just realize, we just know that you don't really want, Ms. Cami always talks about in assemblies, try and not come by car if you live near her, like walk to school, or if you want to come by car, if you can't walk, if you're a little bit further, maybe try and do carpooling, stuff like that, just to reduce your carbon footprint. It helps a lot.
Okay, my question to economic student. Rajveer, your research was on development. So what do you think would be the difference between information and evidence?
I think the difference between information and evidence is that all information is not always correct, but we can say that more often than not, evidence is usually correct because you see it happening.
Thanks for getting up.
It's not on.
Lewis, to you.
It's not on.
Okay, this I want to just. It's not on. Okay, it's off. Is it?
Lewis, yes. Okay, it's too much now, isn't it? This is to you. I want to dig a bit deeper into the part of your speech about the football, and you suggested or alluded to the fact that one of the issues with African football is that it's being hindered by corruption. So can you tell me why it would be that African nations are being hindered by corruption where in Europe and many parts of the world it seems to have caused it to thrive?
That's obviously true. European countries are very corruption as well in sports, but in many countries in Africa there's corruption between country and national gains, and in Europe it's mostly, not every time, but mostly between smaller clubs. Even on like the dark web, you can buy scores of games in African countries. So I think in Africa it's a bigger role than in Europe.
Thank you, yes.
Yeah, I don't think we should ask like Corey to walk like that.
This is very cat.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
My question's for Arman. So, Arman, you mentioned how India's changing housing system and moving more towards nuclear housing. Considering that involves building more houses and there's a cost of living crisis, do you think that's going to hamper the rate at which there's more nuclear housing compared to family housing?
Yeah.
I just like having a mic. I have another question for you, Lewis. You said that only 5 African countries get to qualify for the World Cup and 13 European countries. Do you think that should be reformed and the number of countries should be in proportion to the number of countries on the continent?
This is getting changed in the World Cup 2026, and it's going to be more equal because a lot of countries, not even in Africa, but even in Asia or South or North America, are complaining about that.
Cool.
Okay, I'm now going to hand over to my esteemed colleague, Mr. Alexander. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Please give them a round of applause.